Matt Smith here for Sports Talk at the Stadium, presented by Touchstone Energy Cooperatives. The Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl is coming up December 7th, and you can see Heinz Field there behind me. And tonight, Pitt truly made Heinz Field its own as the Panthers really handled the Clemson Tigers tonight, 27-17. But in all honesty, the game wasn't that close. The final score not indicative of how dominant Pitt was in the final three quarters. Clemson opened the game with a 7-0 lead on a Will Shipley run. This after DJ Uiagalelei, who had been hot and cold to start the game. The Clemson offense, hot and cold overall. Some drops early really got them out of rhythm. Moved the ball a little bit on the ground with Maffa and Shipley early on. And then DJ Uiagalelei hits a beautiful pass to Ajo, 36 yards. That sets up a short Will Shipley run in the first quarter for a touchdown. And things were going okay for Clemson. But at that point on that drive, the Tigers lost center Matt Bockhorst. And it turns out for the season, we saw he was not putting weight on that right leg as he was taken off the field, and the worst news came that it's a torn ACL for Matt Bockhorst, so he's out for the year. So add him to the MASH unit that Clemson is dealing with. But after that, so there's your good news. Well, that's where it stops after the first quarter. The next three quarters belonged to Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Panthers. They won in all phases of the game after that point. To finish off the first half, Kenny Pickett engineered two long scoring drives, 90 yards and 76 yards. And I'll tell you something, Pitt earned it. Average starting field position for the game for the Panthers was their own 19-yard line. The entire game came and went, and Pitt never started outside its own 25-yard line. So a dominant performance in the end by Pitt. 464 yards, most Clemson has given up this season. Now the Tigers have been outgained in 5 of 7 ball games. There are a ton of issues on this offense, and it does not begin and end with DJ Uiagalelei. However, it does begin with him. And, in fact, he was pulled in this game in the third quarter. Dabo Swinney, Tony Elliott, they made the decision to pull DJ Uiagalelei in the third quarter. Tyson Pumachan comes in the game. He leads Clemson on a field goal scoring drive, but after a 3-and-out, they go right back to Uiagalelei. But at that point, the game is out of reach. In the post-game comments, Dabo Swinney and Tony Elliott both said that they did what they did. They were looking for a spark in Pumachan. He gave them somewhat of a spark, coming up with 3 points when Clemson was really spinning its wheels, going nowhere. He did come in, lead them on a field goal scoring drive. Then Uiagalelei is reinserted, plays well, but at that point, Pitt's playing prevent defense as they had already gone up by 3 scores. They'd put 27 points up on the board. At one time in the game, Pitt had gone 4 consecutive possessions, 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals. They were just a blur up and down the field. And most of that from Kenny Pickett, 302 yards, but that really doesn't tell the story. He was better than that. For Clemson offensively, nothing to tell you about, other than there are just problems there. 128 yards passing for Uiagalelei. No one gets the running game going. They try Shipley, they try Maffa, they try Kobe Pace. None of it works. Uiagalelei doesn't have a great rapport with any one receiver. Ajo made a really nice play. Ross came up with a couple of plays. The tight end position, still fruitless. Braden Galloway, as a matter of fact, separated his shoulder in this game. So it keeps going from bad to worse, especially with the injury news. While we're on the subject, Frank Ladson is out for the season. Surgery on that injured groin. He underwent surgery earlier this week. He's done for the year. So now Clemson, as we said, outgained in 5 of the 7 games. On the year, Clemson has only outgained an opponent twice. Those 2 opponents, South Carolina State and Boston College. South Carolina State, of course, a MEAC team. And Boston College just got handled by Louisville easily today. So there are issues. And for their part, Dabo Swinney, Tony Elliott, post-game comments, both said that everything is under evaluation. This isn't just about DJ Uiagalelei, and I think we all understand that. But when things are not clicking offensively, you look to the trigger man first and see if you can get better production from that position. But to be fair, more than a handful of drops by game's end. So Uiagalelei he's inaccurate, erratic at times, but when he makes a nice pass, his receivers don't come up with a play. And that's essentially, I'm taking that from Tony Elliott, Dabo Swinney, who said as much in the post-game comments. They said they're not making plays. Missing layups is one thing Tony Elliott said, not making the easy plays when no one's around you, and then not coming up with the tough ones either. So this is a Clemson offense lacking in confidence, and it has no reason to be confident at this stage of the year. This is not last year's team. This is not a team from the year before. First time Clemson has suffered 3 losses in a regular season since 2014. Ironically, that season also started out with a loss to Georgia. That season also took an overtime loss as its second loss, and then another one on the road. So it's played out much like this season. Now, that one ended with a victory over Oklahoma in a bowl game, a big one, 40-6, 2014. Can this team turn it around? A lot has to change offensively. A lot needs to look better, starting with the offensive line, moving on to the running game, which is non-existent at this point. They were doing okay with yards per carry, but it was obvious they weren't going to be able to run their way to victory. And then quarterback play, receiver play, skill position play overall, all of it is underwater right now. Nothing looks good. And for its part, Pitt, we talked about it this week. This was going to be the toughest defense that they had faced, and it was. And it looked like that was wearing on Pitt early in the game. But by game's end, they were handling Clemson, ran over 80 plays in this game, ended up kneeling it out, could have scored more points at the end. Again, 464 yards of offense, more than any other team had put up against Clemson since Ohio State in the college football playoff a season ago. So where does Clemson go from here? Next up, Florida State. Now, they're a team that's probably coming in with a little more confidence because they just had a UMass opponent, and they dominated today. Maybe they're getting healthy and feeling a little better about themselves. For Clemson, it's look in the mirror time. Probably no chance at an ACC championship this year, the way the standings are shaking out. They obviously don't have the tiebreaker. NC State don't have the tiebreaker. Now they're looking at a situation where they've got 2 conference losses, not playing well, and probably not going to win the ACC this year. And honestly, that wasn't even something discussed in the postgame comments by any of the coaching staff, because they've got to get right. They've got to get right. They've got to start playing better football. Clemson has been on a tightrope all season, and tonight they fell. They were dominated. They were outplayed. Pitt was the better team. They showed it tonight. Clemson has a long way to go just to be the team we thought they were, or they could be maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's getting progressively worse, not progressively better. And again, it starts with the quarterback position. That's not saying it's all DJ Uiagalelei. He's got to get help from the receivers. The passing game has to get better. And the coaches have to do a better job of managing the game. Nothing is working. Nothing is going right for this team. And finally, the defense caved a little bit. They had been holding this team up. That, James Skalski and Tyler Davis did return tonight. We should mention that. But this defense had been holding the water, hanging in there, and finally they collapsed a little bit tonight against a very good Pitt offense and an outstanding quarterback that should be in the Heisman discussion. I don't know if you can win the Heisman and lose to Western Michigan in the same season, but Kenny Pickett is going to try, and he made headlines tonight. Again, better than 300 yards passing against a very good Clemson defense. So that's the story here. Clemson looks to regroup, looks itself in the mirror, still searching for answers. Similar to the report we gave after the Georgia game, that they had a long way to go, that this offense wasn't right. That hasn't changed. 7 games in, they're 4-3. Offense continues to be an issue. So we'll report on it. We'll discuss it all week long on Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut, Chris Bergen, myself, and of course you. We'll take your thoughts. Chime in at the Sports Talk Twitter feed at Sports Talk SC. Be sure to join us on the show this week as well. Sports Talk Media Network, 6 to 8 weeknights across the state, statewide. And this is absolutely going to be something we're talking about. Clemson, not just tonight. Where do they go? Where are they headed? And is Tyson Pumachan a possible answer? Just to shake it up. Dabo Swinney said shot in the arm. They wanted to do that tonight to get a spark. Is it worth starting him next week against Florida State at home? That's what we'll discuss this week on Sports Talk with you. That's it. Matt Smith here. Final score, Pitt 27, Clemson 17. Be sure to join us Monday night on the Sports Talk Media Network.